That's an animated sprite. We're seeing a full animation. The next thing is I want to make my array of sprites. And my array of sprites is going to be an array of animated sprites. I'm going to go back to my original sprite code, copy all that, make a new document, paste all that in, file, save as. This is going to be array of sprites. I'm going to call this one sprite array.js. Save that. My sprite array, it's going to be an array of sprites. This is my sprite constructor, needs to match our name here. It's going to have an x and a y with a source. Then I'm going to have how many rows and how many columns. So rows and columns like that. Copy this to make my rows and columns. R is equal to R and .c is equal to C. I also need to know how many sprites I have in total. This .n is equal to R times C. We actually need to position these guys. I'm going to use my for loop again. I'm going to make for h is equal to 0 while h is less than the number of columns that we have. Make h increase by 1 each time. For k, I'm going to indent that, is equal to 0 while k is less than the number of rows that we have. Make k increase by 1. This is how tall they are. We want to have 3 rows of them, and they're going to be 7 across, so there's going to be 7 columns. Think of it that way. It's a 3 by 7 rectangle of monsters. So the columns are how deep they are. I'm going to make an array of sprites. So I'm going to make an array here. So this dot array, I'm just going to call it array, is equal to a new array. Our array, I should have another counter, so I'm going to make a variable called j. I'm going to make it equal to 0. Our 0 member of the array is going to be an animated sprite. And remember the animated sprite that we made back here in the game? It's basically going to be that animated sprite. Save that. I'm going to go back into the sprite array. It is an animated sprite. Where am I going to position it? Let's go back to the for loop for a second. This guy was how deep we are, and this is how wide we are. This is how high we are. And this is how wide we are. This is going to have to do with width. So the first one is going to be where this monster is, and the second one's going to be beside it, and the third one's going to be beside that. We're going to be dealing with the k. It is going to be k times the width of the sprite times this dot w. This one is going to be having to do with the height up and down. So it's h. So this is h times this dot h. I'm using an h and I have an h up there. It's not going to like that. Let's call this m and n. How about just a and b? A, and b, and this is a. We're not giving them a velocity. This is going to be their width and their height. So this dot width and this dot height. Then the source that we're getting from here, I'll just use whatever the source happens to be. Then how many objects we have, which is, we already have right here, this dot n. It is positioning them that way. That should work, because we have a whole array of these things. The j starts off being 0. I can't attach the j to the a or the b or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is just have the j increase after it's been used, so plus plus. So the first time it starts out, it goes through, it's 0, and then it increases to 1. So the next time it goes through this for loop, it's a 1, then it's a 2, then it's a 3. So j plus plus. For now, we won't do anything to its velocity or anything. When we draw it, so we need to have another for loop. We have to tell each individual monster in the array to draw itself. We're just going to make another for loop, very similar to the one we had, one of these for loops. So I'm just going to copy that and say for b is equal to 0, while b is less than this dot n, how many monsters we have. Make b increase by 1. And then we're drawing this dot, our image array, which we just called array, b. We don't need to tell it. We need to tell it to draw itself. So this dot array dot b dot draw. You're going to be calling the draw function in the sprite animation over and over and over again. Let me just put that inside brace brackets like that. That should work. Let's go back to the original game. I'll just copy all of this. Back to the game. I'm going to get rid of this for a second, and I'm going to put in, I'll make something called monster array is equal to a sprite array, having it start off at 0, 0. No velocity in either direction. The width of, I'm going to put in like the width of the actual images. Then monster. The number of rows, I wanted there to be 3 rows with how many columns? 7 columns. In our move function, we need to tell the whole array to move, monsterArray.move. Then we're going to do monsterArray.draw. Let's save that. Let's see how badly it doesn't work. Sprite array is not defined. We just didn't do that in the HTML. The sprite array depends on the sprite animation, so the sprite animation has to come first. I was trying to find these images, which is not correct. Let's go back